Hi everyone, it is Miss Mann, your Learning Center Specialist. We're continuing with Chapter 12, Los Asparagus. We have 3 chapters left. Just thought I'd give you that info and give you a different view of the Learning Center, a much better view, uh, at least a better background. Okay, here we go. Let's see what happens. Marta was right. The strikers were more organized than ever. They handed out flyers in front of every store. They painted sides of old barns with their slogans and held meetings at the farm. Esperanza got on the flatbed truck with Hortensia and Josefina for the first day of packing. The company had sent a man with the gun to ride on the truck with them for protection, they said, but the gun frightened Esperanza. When they arrived at the sheds, a crowd of women interrupted into shouting and booing. They carried signs that said, Huelga, strike. Among them were Marta and her friends, and they were yelling, Help us feed our children! We must all join together if we are to all eat! Save your countrymen from starving! When Esperanza saw their menacing faces, she wanted to run back to the safety of the camp, do laundry, clean diapers, anything but this. She wanted to tell them that she didn't want anyone's children to starve, but she knew it wouldn't matter. The strikers only listened if you agreed with them. She reached for Hortensia's hand and pulled her close. Josefina marched toward the shed, looking straight ahead. Hortensia and Esperanza stayed close behind, never letting go of each other. One of the women from their camp called out, We make less money packing asparagus than you do when you pick cotton. Leave us alone. Our children are hungry too. When the guard wasn't looking, one of the strikers picked up a rock and threw it at the woman, barely missing her head, and the workers all hurried towards the shed. The strikers stayed near the road, but Esperanza's heart was still beating wildly as she and the women took their places to pack the asparagus. That night at dinner, Alfonso and Juan told how they had the same problems in the fields. Strikers waited for them, and they had to cross the picket lines to get to work. Once in the fields, they were safe, protected by guards the company had sent. But the logs of asparagus that were sent back to the sheds had been taken across the picket lines, and strikers often slipped surprises beneath the harvest. The strike continued for days. One afternoon, as Josefina took a handful of asparagus from the crate, a large rat jumped out at her. A few days later, Esperanza heard a terrible scream from one of the women, and several writhing gopher snakes slithered out of the crate. They found razor blades and shards of glass in the field bins, and the women, usually efficient and quick to unpack the asparagus, slowed down and were hesitant to grab the vegetables from their boxes. When several of them heard when several of them heard a rattling beneath the pile of stalks, the supervisors took the entire crate out of the yard, dumped it, and found an angry rattlesnake inside. It was a miracle that no one was bitten by that snake, said Hortensia that night at dinner. They were all gathered around in one cabin, eating meatball soup. Did you see it? Asked Isabel. Yes, said Esperanza. We all saw it. It was frightening, but the supervisor cut its head off with a hoe. Isabel cringed. Can't they do anything to the strikers? Asked Hortensia. It's a free country, said Miguel. And besides, strikers are careful. As long as they stay near the roads and the guards don't actually see them do anything aggressive, then no, there is not much that anyone can do. It's the same at the railroad. I pass the picket lines every day and listen to the yelling and the insults. It's the yelling all day long that bothers me, said Hortensia. Remember, do not respond to them, said Alfonso. Things will get better. Papa, said Miguel, things will get worse. Have you seen the cars and trucks coming through in the pass in the mountains? Every day, more and more people. Some of them say they will pick cotton for 5 or 6 cents a pound and will pick produce for less. People cannot survive on such low wages. Where will it end? Said Josefina. Everyone will starve if people work for less and less money. That is the striker's point, said Esperanza. No one said anything. Forks clinked on the plates. Pepe, who was sitting in Esperanza's lap, dropped a meatball on the floor. Are we going to starve? Asked Isabel. No, mija, said Josefina. How could anyone starve here with so much food around us? Esperanza had grown so accustomed to the striking chants while she packed asparagus that the moment it stopped, she looked up from her work as if something were wrong. Hortensia, do you hear that? What? The silence. There is no more yelling. The other women on the line looked at each other. They couldn't see the street from where they stood, so they moved to the other end of the shed, cautiously looking out where the other strikers usually stood. In the distance, a caravan of gray buses and police cars headed fast toward the shed, dust flying in their wakes. Immigration, said Josefina. It's a sweep. The women in the packing shed huddled together, protected by the company's guard. What about us? Said Esperanza. I cannot leave Mama. Hortensia heard the panic in her voice. No, no, Esperanza, they are not here for us. The growers need workers. That's why the company guards us. Several immigration officials, accompanied by police, began searching the platform, turning over boxes and dumping out field bins. Finding no strikers on the dock, they jumped back down and hurried to where the crowd was being loaded onto the buses. Americana, Americana, yelled one woman, and she began to unfold some papers. One of the officials took the papers from her hand and tore them into pieces. Get on the bus, he ordered. What will they do with them? Asked Esperanza. They will take them to Los Angeles, put them on a train to El Paso, Texas, and then to Mexico, said Josefina. But some of them are citizens, said Esperanza. It doesn't matter. They are causing problems for the government. They're talking about forming a farm workers union, and the government and the growers don't like that. Well, what about their families? How will they know? Well, word gets out. It is sad. They leave the buses parked at the station until late at night with those captured on board. Families don't want to be separated from their loved ones and usually go with them. That is the idea. They call it a voluntary deportation, but it's not much of a choice. Two immigration officials positioned themselves in front of the shed. The others left on the buses. Esperanza and the other women watched the despondent faces in the windows disappear. Slowly the women reassembled the line and began to pack again. It had lasted all only just a few minutes. Well, what happens now? Asked Esperanza. La Migra will help keep their eyes open for any strikers that may come back, said Josefina, nodding toward the two men stationed nearby. And we go back to work and feel thankful it is not us on the bus. Esperanza took a deep breath and went back to her spot. She was relieved, but still imagined the anguish of the strikers. Troubled thoughts stayed in her mind. Something seemed very wrong about sending people away from their free country because they had spoken their minds. She noticed she needed more bands to wrap around the asparagus bundles and walked to the back of the dock to get them. As she bent down to set one straight, she sucked in her breath, startled by what was in front of her. Marta was huddled in a corner, holding her fingers to her lips and her eyes begging for help. She whispered, Please, Esperanza, don't tell. I can't get caught. I must take care of my mother. Esperanza stood frozen for a moment, remembering Marta's meanness the first day in the truck. If she helped her, and someone found out, Esperanza would be next on the bus. She couldn't risk it and started to say no, but then she thought about Marta and her mother holding hands and couldn't imagine them being separated from each other. And besides, they were both citizens. They had every right to be here. She turned around and headed back to where the others were working. No one had paid any attention to her. All the bus, oh, they were all busy talking about the sweep. She picked up a bundle of asparagus, several burlap sacks from the sack, and a dirty apron that someone had left from the hook. She quietly wandered back to Marta's hiding place. La migra, La migra is still out front, she said in a hushed voice. They will probably leave in an hour when the shed closes. She handed the apron and the asparagus to Martha. When you leave, put on the apron and carry the asparagus so you look like a worker, just in case anyone stops you. Gracias, whispered Martha. I am sorry I misjudged you. Shh, said Esperanza, repositioning the cases and draping the burlap sacks across their tops so Marta couldn't be seen. Esperanza, called Josefina. Where are you? We need those rubber bands. Esperanza stuck her head around the corner and saw Josefina with her hands on her hips, waiting. Coming, she called. She grabbed a bundle of bands and went back to work as if nothing had happened. Esperanza laid in bed that night and listened to the others in the front room talk about the sweeps and the deportations. They went to every major grower and put hundreds of strikers on the buses, said one. Some say that they did it to create more jobs for those coming from the east, said Josefina. We are lucky the company needs us right now. If they didn't, we could be next. We've been loyal to the company and the company will be loyal to us, said Alfonso. I'm just glad it's over, said Hortensia. It is not over, said Miguel. In time, they will be back, especially if they have families here. They will reorganize and they'll be stronger. They will come when a time when we have to decide all over again whether we join them or not. How was it that in Mexico they could send people? How was it that in the United States they could send people to Mexico who had never even lived there? She couldn't stop thinking about Marta. It didn't matter if Esperanza agreed with her cause or not. No one should be separated from her family. Had Marta made her way back to the striker's farm without getting caught? Had she found her mother? For some reason, Esperanza had to know. The next morning, she begged Miguel to drive her to the farm. The field was still surrounded by the chain link fence, but no one was protecting the entrance this time. All the evidence of the people that she had seen was before was there, but not one person was to be seen. It was quiet and desolate, except for the goat still tied to the tree, bleeding for freedom. Immigration's been here too, said Miguel. He got out of the truck, walked over to the tree, and untied the goat. More than anything, Esperanza hoped that Marta and her mother were together, but now there may be no way for her to find out. Maybe Marta's aunt would know eventually. Something colorful caught her eye. Dangling from a tree branch were the remnants of a little donkey piñata that she had given to the children. Its tissue streamers fluttered in the breeze. It had been beaten with a stick, its insides tore out.